Greetings. My name is Elizabeth Coble. I'll be talking about my findings in the JSTOR research project. My specialty is World War II, Allied airborne operations, special operations, intelligence, and the Holocaust. If I get more specific, I'm fascinated by Operation Market Garden, which was an Allied airborne operation in the Netherlands in September of 1944. For this presentation, I did multiple searches, starting broad and narrowing down the parameters by adding keywords in the advanced search. This is the same basic method I used in our last project related to ProQuest dissertations and thesis global database. But this time I found many more related works. So sorting through the findings to figure out the three most significant to my specialty was time-consuming but interesting. I chose a couple of book chapters in a magazine, two about Allied intelligence and one about British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery's command throughout the war. The first book chapter I selected was World War II and the Role of Intelligence in Strategic Planning from the book Spying on the World, the Declassified Documents of the Joint Intelligence Committee, 1936 to 2013 by Richard Aldrich and others, which was published in 2014. Well, this was chapter 3 in the book. I had to read chapters 1 and 2 to get context. This book was great in the way it incorporated some of the most significant documents. For example, it included scans of the original meeting notes from the Allied Joint Intelligence Subcommittee, but by doing that, there wasn't much space dedicated to analyzing or synthesizing additional information. For example, in this chapter, there were 30 pages, 25 of which were dedicated to document scans. This chapter was supposed to cover all of World War II, but I found this chapter very limiting, with little I could use for future research. However, when I read chapters 1 and 2, it did provide information and context about the Joint Intelligence Committee. But neither of these chapters came up when I did my official search. So they're sort of accidental finds. The second book chapter I chose was Arnhem, Conceptual Failure, in the book Montgomery's Men, the British Army and the Liberation of Europe by John Buckley, which was published in 2013. This chapter was focused on Operation Market Garden. I was pleasantly surprised at how the author criticized Operation Market Garden planning, even though no one was specifically blamed. There was some blame pointed at the Airborne Division commanders for operational execution flaws. There was also some blame pointed towards Allied intelligence, which I thought was a little misleading and certainly out of date with the more recent interpretations of the available intelligence. This chapter was reliant on secondary sources, predominantly secondary sources, which I found surprising considering the available primary sources. The article I chose was about General Dwight Eisenhower's relationship with the Allied intelligence community. Titled Eisenhower and the Intelligence Community in World War II, it was written by Stephen Ambrose. It's a little bit older, published in 1981. While I read the entire article, I focused on the parts related to Operation Market Garden. This included the efforts of British Major General Kenneth Strong, who was Eisenhower's senior intelligence officer, to convince Montgomery and his staff to reconsider the operation based on available intelligence. This article was loaded with sources. In a 12-page article, there were 58 footnotes, some of which had more than one citation used. And most of the citations or the sources were primary sources. So for all three selections, they did contribute or will contribute to my knowledge about World War II generally. For the first chapter discussed, the greater impact to my knowledge base is from the ancillary chapters, not the chapter I found in my research on JSTOR. From the Ambrose article, I also gained new primary sources which will assist me in my research.